Welcome to the JBs Powercast, where we talk about industry news, events, performance parts, trucks and accessories, shop talk, and we'll even do a little bench racing. The JBs Powercast starts now.
Hi guys, thanks for tuning in this week. As always with Corey. How's it going, man?
Morning. It's going good. Fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you?
It's Friday.
Yeah.
We got lunch today in the building.
We
Hopefully
do.
You're gonna stick around for that.
I actually plan to stick around for lunch. Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, why say no when there's...
A free sandwich? Absolutely.
Yeah, and treats, why not, right? It's not like we get that anywhere else. We got to make sure we get it at work.
That's right. Yeah, if someone's going to make me a sandwich, I'm not going to say no.
Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise, fine. I mean, you know, I kind of realized the other day, it's already halfway through July.
It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
Mid-July already, and thankfully, you know, weather's been okay, and track's been open, and people are racing, and a lot of the stuff that we were kind of worried about maybe, you know, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, you know, it's not such an immediate worry as much as it's just everybody kind of play by the rules.
Yeah, and more things are opening. You know, I think we could do away with a little bit less rain, like no more in the evenings. Like it's coming down pretty hard there.
It has been, yeah. I mean, but you know, that's July. It tends to rain a lot, so.
Yeah, I just, you know, I was hoping that, hey, bad COVID, you know, but here the hottest, driest summer.
With the best summer ever.
Ever, you know, like spend time at the lake. There's no mosquitoes. What? Okay, keep COVID around, right? No, but you know, no, not the case.
No, not the case. No,
sit
just
outside,
a regular summer.
Sit outside
hammered
for 15,
with rain.
Yeah, sit outside for 15 minutes, eating alive, go back in, cuss the weather and everything, go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like Alberta.
Hasn't changed.
Yeah, let's jump into some news real quick.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about, of course, the Bronco.
Well, it's out, right?
It's revealed. It's out. We know what it looks like. We know the specs. They released a massive amount of information. I did my best to parse it down.
Sure.
Because there is a ton of info. It's obviously long awaited, highly anticipated, and for the most part, I'd say, man, they friggin' delivered. Visually, there's been so many spy shots and stuff, but you know, we kind of had a pretty good idea of what it looks like, but it really looks great. They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
it looks exactly what it needs to look like. I read actually a really interesting comment that, like, in a rare case, I don't know if you remember, way back in, I'm going to say 2006, they had the Bronco concept. This is going like way back.
Right.
Okay. The finished version, this never ever happens. The finished version almost looks more like a concept car looks than most production vehicles look.
Right. As
in, like, they really didn't dull up the style. It looks super duper sharp. From all the original ideas, they pretty much made it into production. They really didn't cut any corners. Yeah, I mean, it's a Bronco, so it's going to be boxy and it kind of has all the key elements to it. But they really didn't dumb it down. They didn't round it off. They didn't make it, you know, look like it shared a chassis with an Escape or something stupid like that, which it very well could have. Right? You look at
the new stuff. Absolutely.
Look at the new Tahoe. It's just it's an SUV. It's not even an SUV. It's a crossover.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's talk about some specs then. So there's a couple choices for motor. Some people are a little bit on the fence about the motor, but I'm not too worried about it. So there's a couple choices. They're both EcoBoost. So right now, turbocharged all the way. There's a 2.3 liter inline 4 EcoBoost, makes about 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. You know, it's nothing crazy, but it's nothing to laugh at.
Sure.
It doesn't need to be a monster powerhouse. That's not really the intention of it, right? Transmission-wise, you get a manual, which is great. Everyone was a little worried there wasn't going to be a manual, which would be crazy for them to do. Thankfully, they didn't do that. 7-speed, first gear is an actual crawler gear. It has the same ratio as a Wrangler Rubicon, so it is legit a crawler gear. And it's out of the way. They have it as a C position. It's locked out behind reverse, so you can't accidentally
throw it into
put it into it by accident. Yeah, exactly. Right now, the manual is only available with the 2.3 liter, the smaller motor, but you can also get a 2.7, that's the EcoBoost V6, that makes like 310 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. So whichever way, it's going to be boosted, which is totally fine. EcoBoost, that is obviously where they're putting their money in,
of course,
as far as Ford goes. And why wouldn't they? That's really their baby motor technology. So models. You know how when there's a new model, most companies come out with like a special first edition?
Of course.
There's that. They call it the first edition. Go figure.
Makes sense. Yeah.
There's also 6 other models.
Oh.
So like the amount of choice on this vehicle is actually, it's almost a little overwhelming. So I'm just going to go through them real quick. There's the base model, obviously. There's the first edition model. Then they have one that's called the Big Bend, which basically upgrades your tires 30 inches to 32 inches.
Okay.
Then there's the Black Diamond. You add on skid plates, rock rails, locking rear diff. Outer Banks. That one is a little bit like a Sahara, luxury interior, a little bit nicer stuff like that. They have one called the Wild Track, which is like a desert runner style. That automatically comes with the 2.7 V6, 35-inch tires, position-sensitive special Bilstein dampers. There's the Badlands, which is like our Rubicon. That's like their off-road one.
Right.
33-inch, like meaty tires, disconnecting front sway bar. The Badlands also comes with full marine-grade vinyl upholstery, rubberized floors, so the entire interior is 100% waterproof.
Wow, that's cool.
Switches and everything are all waterproofed as well. They're coated, they're whatever.
Right.
So it's a true
Off-road vehicle.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, take the doors off, get it wet, hose it down.
Yeah.
No big deal. And then there's one more thing, and this is really cool actually. They did a really smart thing here. So those are the models. They have something called the Sasquatch package, which is a great name for an off-road vehicle. So that basically gives you all the top-of-the-line off-road gear, the stuff you'd really want. The 35-inch mud terrain tires, the 4.7 final drive ratio, locking front rear diffs. You get the cool beadlock tire or wheels, higher suspension, fender flares, the Bilstein dampers. But it actually adds an extra 3 inches of track width as well. The cool thing with that is that package can actually be added to any model.
Oh, okay.
So if you really want to like a bang for your buck off-roader, you can get the base model, which starts at like $29,000, and add all the off-road shit without going to like the full
premium model,
top model.
Right.
So it's really, really, really customizable. Beyond that, Ford said that there will be no less than 200 accessories available, like pretty much out of the gate, as far as just different door types, roof types, whatever it is. They're really, really, really leaning into the customizable off-road kind of market.
Sure.
Couple other neat things. Going to talk. Ground clearance. So ground clearance actually has better ground clearance than a Raptor. It has almost 12 inches of ground clearance and a fording depth through water of 33.5 inches, which is like almost the same as like amphibious vehicle territory.
Sure.
So almost 34 inches of fording. 12 inches of ground clearance. It is an off-road vehicle.
Yeah.
Through and through. It's not a halfway meet you there. It is absolutely a capable off-road vehicle.
No kidding. And it's interesting that you mentioned the EcoBoost as their flagship, because we know from JBs that you can turn those EcoBoosts up to make some serious amount of horsepower out of a tuner.
Oh yeah, like 100 extra horsepower.
Right.
Yeah.
So these numbers, good. I start off with 300, and with a couple simple purchases when the time comes, you're well over 400.
Add a little air, add a little tune.
Exactly.
No
and wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's real cool.
Couple cool things. The doors obviously are removable. The doors are frameless, so they're like a side-by-side, right? So they don't, like a Wrangler sort of attaches at the joint.
That's right.
These come off like a side-by-side, very inspired by that whole market.
Cool.
The doors come with fitted bags, so you can take them off, zip them up, take them with you. They don't have to slide around, rattling, scratching paint, bumping stuff like that.
Right.
The exterior mirrors. Again, these are like, you can tell, a lot of these things are very much like, okay, what does Jeep do? Okay, and we're going to do it this way.
Right.
The mirrors are mounted directly on the A-pillar. So in a Jeep, if you take your doors off, you don't have any mirrors. Right. Take the doors off your Bronco, not a problem.
Right.
Mirrors are mounted on the A-pillar. So there's a lot of little things like that where clearly they were like, this is a problem, we'll fix it.
We beat you.
Yeah, exactly, we beat you. And I'm sure like, hey, without this, like the only other thing, and has been forever, is the Wrangler. That's the only other real choice. So the interior, like I said, is going to be fully waterproof, hose out, all that stuff. The center console on either end, I don't know if we had an interior picture, I didn't notice, but on either end, the center console is flanked by these big, meaty grab handles.
Okay.
And when they were developing it, they actually parked it right up on an angle, and they had all the engineers and designers and developers get in and crawl through the vehicle, and every single person was like, man, we need handles on this. So they just added them to the end of the dash.
Cool.
So when you're getting in and out, big old grab handles.
There they
You can
are.
see them on the side there, yeah. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Also, you can sort of see that infotainment system. It's a friggin' 12-inch Sync 4 screen.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's off-road. Yeah, it's got all these cool capabilities. It's also Ford. They're investing a lot in their tech.
Sure, they are.
So it's got all the gadgetry and the tech built in.
Well, the sync system's pretty good. Like
the sync system is really good. It's probably one of the best ones.
I agree with you. Like, get into a brand new F-150, or we've seen them come through the shop here, and you see the MySync or the sync technology, and then you get a new GM. And I would say, in my opinion, that the Ford is a more superior system. It just seems to work better.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
I think they've just put more R&D into it, and they've developing it longer. Like that sync. That sync technology has been around for, I don't know, friggin' 10 years at least. And now the new one, Sync 4, is, it's a good intuitive interface. They're finally doing a good job catching up to the aftermarket.
Sure.
Which is really what it is.
Yep, I agree.
Not only that, so built into that Sync 4 system, this is only available on the Bronco, they have a full off-road trail navigation system that's built in, don't need a cell signal, don't need anything like that. Yeah, so it comes with, it comes with nav built in. And most people, whatever, it's on my phone, they're not as concerned about it. But this is an offline trail included nav system that comes with Sync 4 only on the Bronco. So it's kind of got a built-in trail GPS, which is pretty rad.
Yeah, well, I know from my oil field days there was a similar system called, I think it was Oil Tracks. And basically when you needed to find a lease road or you needed to find something off the beaten path, this was a GPS system that got you to the middle of nowhere, where potentially all the trails are.
Right.
So you wouldn't be lost in the woods and have issues. So it's cool that they thought of that. That hey, here's an additional map. Here's this. If you're off the trail, no matter what, you'll be able to look and see where you are.
Well, most of those guys that do like real legit trail crawling and riding and stuff like that, a lot of them have third-party trail GPS systems and maps and stuff that they buy and they load on their phone. So, I mean, again, Ford is just trying to get their leg up on, I guess, whatever competition and just say, hey, you don't need that anymore. Right? It's built in. There's no subscription. It's just, we gave it there for you. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have any service, no problem. You can find your way back because it's on a hard drive.
And from the way it looks great.
It really, really does.
Yeah, it's a nice looking truck.
It looks fantastic. So obviously there's a 2-door and a 4-door properly. Now there's two, aside from all those submodels, there's the Ranger and there's the Ranger Sport. And there's still a little bit of confusion. The Ranger Sport is really just the baby Ranger. The chassis is smaller. It is a little bit more like a crossover. It's still fairly capable. Most of all of this off-road stuff that we're talking about is on the full Bronco.
Right.
The little one is a little bit more like that crossover with SUV style.
Of course.
It'll be pretty capable, but it's kind of like, you look at Jeep. Jeep does the same thing, right? The Wrangler, that's the off-road one. And then there's all the others.
Exactly.
Right? And they're fine, but they're not, if you're actually going to go and you're going to take it and you're going to beat it up, that's the one that you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Buying it purposely for something that you want to do is the right way.
Yes.
But there's options of buying that. I like the style, I like the look, I like the way it, what it brings to the attention it brings to me, but I will never see a dirt road in my life. Well, this is one you should
go with that one, yeah.
Actually I'm an off-road enthusiast. I like doing it. I do the back trails. I'm Kananaskis country, wherever I am. No, if I see a dirt road, I'm actually going to give it a shot and go up there.
Totally.
Yeah, then there's one for you too. Yeah, exactly. Get the good one. Because the other one's shit.
So, I mean, like I said, I sort of slimmed it down. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I strongly suggest, pretty sure we put a link in the description to the article. I pulled it off of, I think it was the Car and Driver article. They did a really, really good coverage on it. They actually have like 4 or 5 articles that they all massed into one. They do a pretty deep dive, and if you want to read some more, go and check it out. Lots of info on it. Obviously, it's a big reveal, and everyone's excited. And it does look really, really, really good.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even a huge truck guy. I like trucks. But I don't know. Oh, and that reminds me of one other thing that I didn't write down, but I forgot. That's actually really cool. In the back, so I would call it a truck.
Okay.
The back does open, swings open like a bed, like a Jeep.
Sure.
It actually has a pull-out bed as well.
Oh.
I don't know how far exactly it extends, but in the back there is like a pull-out that gives you extra space, extra
Cool.
loading, extra cargo, stuff like that. There's
Wow.
so many tiny little details that I was like,
they've
oh, I'll
thought
write
of.
that one down. Oh, that's not important. Oh, I'm going to
Right.
remember that. Oh, that's not
Right.
important. There's tons and tons of stuff.
And when are we expecting to see them on the road?
I believe 2021 for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
They're taking deposits.
Of course.
Of course. So the next step is like, you want one, friggin' get in line.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't think they gave I don't remember seeing a firm date. For sure it's going to be next year. But I don't think I saw a month or even a quarter.
Right.
But, you know,
So it's not like Christmas of this year we should see them out. It'll probably be...
I'd be surprised if it was
next
this year.
year?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
Either way, yeah, super duper cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
There, you know, I looked at like, what else is interesting this week? That was kind of the big story.
Sure.
This got missed by a lot of people because it came out the same day.
Oh, yeah.
And of course it did.
Yeah.
And like, that was obviously intentional. Jeep trying to...
Steal a thunder.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I mean, maybe not steal the thunder as much as like desperately claw the spotlight
Sure.
back towards them a little
Yeah.
bit. So Jeep, they had a while ago, maybe like a week ago, and I didn't really talk about it. They talked about it. They had an idea about putting a V8 Wrangler, and they've talked about that a bunch of times. People have been asking for it forever. I think that they probably knew that Ford wasn't going to put a Coyote in the Bronco.
No.
Yet.
Agree on
There's
the
still
part.
time.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
bet there is.
And Ford knows that.
Yep.
And they're you know, not going to play all their cards
Yeah.
on year one.
Yep.
But Jeep on the same day revealed what they call the Wrangler Rubicon 392. Right now, it is technically just a concept, but the guy in charge of Jeep basically said that, I know people have been asking for this. Here's how this would look. Yes, we've made it work. We've tested it. This is a thing that we can do. If people want it, yeah, I think we'll make it.
Right.
So at the end of the day, basically, it's a 450 horsepower V8. It's the what is it? It's the 6.4.
Yep. 6.4
Yeah,
liter.
that's right.
Yeah. Same thing in the Challengers, the Chargers. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, you know, what does that give you? Yeah, big bad V8 in a Wrangler. Have we ever really needed that? That's debatable. Why not? That
Yeah.
seems to be Dodge's credo lately. Is like
Biggest motor in anything you can get.
it kind of seems like they're like, okay, what cars haven't we put a 6.4 in yet? You know, they just did the Durango.
Yep.
Now
Yep,
it's
yep.
like, okay, yeah, what else can we cram this in? So yeah, it's going to do 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. Yeah, it's going to have a loud, obnoxious V8 dual exhaust. Man, cool. People have been doing
The swap.
Jeep swaps forever and
Yep.
ever and ever. So the concept that they came up obviously has some pretty serious off-road stuff as well. You know, you've got the right diffs, you've got a full-time 2-speed transfer case, full electronic locking, you know, front rear diffs, extra, you know, 2 inches of lift, fancy Fox shocks, 37-inch tires, which
that's
is
a big tire.
pretty damn big for a
Yep,
production
you bet.
production tire. Serious meat. And they gave it, you know, rock rails and steel bumpers and a winch and all of the stuff that you would want on that anyway. That's the idea behind the concept. No price or anything. It is still a concept technically.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, hey, you know what they didn't put in the Bronco? Huh?
Exactly.
You know
Exactly.
what we have? Huh?
Yeah.
A 5 liter? Pfft,
Yeah.
How about a 6.4 liter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I agree with you, Corey. I think that's the exact reason that they did it. And I mean,
Totally.
when you think about Jeep, they're not very heavy.
They're not that heavy. No. I mean, they're not light.
No, they're not
But they're
light.
not massive.
But I mean, they've been four-wheeling and digging in mud with a V6 forever.
Yeah.
And now, here.
Right, and that V6 makes, I don't know, 300-ish.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
You know, now here's a 450,
450, yeah.
V8 that, again, throw a tuner, throw some air at it, throw whatever. Now you're at 500.
Not a problem. Yep.
You got a pretty good mud
500
machine
horsepower
there.
Jeep.
Right.
No joke.
It is no joke.
Yeah. Even, do you remember when who was it? Earhart Sales brought that turbo Jeep down here. Do you remember that?
I do.
And that made about 400 and some odd horsepower, and
Right.
that thing went like
Sure.
snot. That was
Sure.
That was a frighteningly fast Jeep.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it is, I was like,
Yeah.
this is too fast in this vehicle.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Feels like
friggin'
it
roll over.
over. Yeah, exactly. It'll
So
tip.
you know, I
Yeah.
guess again, like you know, big horsepower in a vehicle that you know, off-roading is not about speed.
Nope.
It's like a 450 V8, you know, in a Jeep seems cool. It also seems a little bit like that's why they've never done it. It's not terribly practical,
No.
but it is cool. Guys just want,
Yep.
guys just want to put a V8 in.
Yeah, and you're right. Off-roading is not about speed. It's about maneuvering and
Right, it's not about
steering
horsepower.
and driving and it. But now I guess if you want to take your Jeep to the drag strip
Why not?
and give it a run,
Yeah,
I
now
guess
you can.
it'll go right. It's cool. I can't wait to see the Broncos driving on the road. I think they're going to be it. And knowing Ford, we're going to see a million of them.
Sure, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like looking at pictures of them, it's like, yeah, we're gonna, and like it is a striking vehicle. It doesn't look like anything else.
No.
People during some of the camouflage and the concept and stuff like that. Oh, it looks like a Range Rover. Oh, it looks like this. It looks too much like that. It really doesn't, and it's big and it's wide. Yeah, it looks the part.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a couple cool pictures actually linked to that article, not in that one, showing a new one parked beside an old one. Just showing different, sizes and comparison, and obviously it's a little bit bigger. But like you look at a lot of the lines and stuff, and man, it's unmistakable. They did a really good job.
It's a Bronco
on the design level.
Yeah,
It is very much.
That's real cool.
Yeah. So that's obviously that's kind of the big news of the week is probably we weren't gonna get out of not talking about it. It's been such a lead up to it.
No, and I agree. I mean, we've been kind of teasing about it because we've been looking and watching the Bronco as the spy shots and stuff, and finally to be able to say, hey, look at this thing, look at this, and it's actually reality. It's cool.
Yeah, and they really nailed it. So many times, a lot of these long, drawn-out vehicle reveals and all this stuff, often they fall a little flat because people, the hype is what kills them.
Yeah.
And amazingly, I don't feel like the hype killed this vehicle. I feel like when it came out this week, there's just as much, if not more, hype now than there was leading up to it, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
That a company can actually deliver, and it's like, oh damn. Yeah. All right, fair enough.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Exactly. It's I can't wait to see them, and the V8 and the Jeep. Like it's again, like we've talked. It's good to see the big three, if you want to call them, still going after
competing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And whatever market it might be, they're still competing. They know the consumer wants product, and they're, well, here it is. Go ahead and take it, buy it, and enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
So
It is. Like you said, it is nice to see that it is still largely a consumer-driven. Ford, when they did that, we're going to kill all of our models. We're going to stop making all the cars except for these ones. Do you remember that? A year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
That was a bold move, and I don't disagree with it. A lot of people are like, "You're not giving people what they want." I think they have to do that to make room for being able to do stuff like this.
Agreed.
Stuff that people have been asking for.
Yeah.
Nobody really needs 5 different sedans.
No.
At the end of the day,
No.
Slim it down, make the stuff that people want, and make that really good.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that's a summary. I think we'll take a break, and then afterwards, you're talking to Brady, right?
Yeah. We're
From
going to talk
Escort.
about speeding.
So we're going to talk about speeding.
And getting your license to speed.
All right. Cool.
See you guys after the break.
Thanks.
Power. The dictionary says it's the change in energy over a period of time. We'll make it easy for you. Power is MBRP. Increased performance, fuel economy, assertive tone. That's an MBRP high-flow performance exhaust system. Shop the largest selection of MBRP exhaust from JBs Power Center in Edmonton and Calgary at the guaranteed lowest prices or online at jbspowercenter.com. Increase airflow to your engine with a K&N air intake system. Guaranteed you'll see an increase in horsepower and torque. Our intake systems are paired with a washable, reusable high-flow air filter. The oversized conical filter design allows you to go up to 100,000 miles between filter services under normal highway driving conditions. Increase your fuel economy, service intervals, and performance with K&N. Shop the largest Canadian inventory of K&N cold air intakes at JB's Power Center in Edmonton and Calgary at the guaranteed lowest prices. Or shop online at jbspowercenter.com.
We're back, guys. We got Brady on the phone from Escort Radar. Brady, thanks for taking the time to join us. Hope you're having a good Friday so far.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So, Brady, I want to get right into it. I don't think I'm the only person that has gotten a speeding ticket. I also don't think I'm the only person that every year when you go to motor vehicles, you have a nervous sweat. Your ass cheeks are clenched together because you're worried about what the amount of money is going to come out from the lady behind the counter. You know, give us an explanation on how radar detector helps you drive safer. But you know, when you buy one, it's not your license to speed.
Right. So yeah, obviously you never want to spend a whole lot more money than you know you're already spending, right? So,
right.
You know, a radar detector's main purpose is to help you drive smarter. You know, it's designed to help you be more aware of your surroundings. It's you know certainly not a license to speed as you would, but rather a device that allows you to be more aware of your changing situations around you. You know, obviously in today's world, there's so many things going on that you can really distract you. Whether it's the phone call that you're on, you're having a deep discussion with somebody next to you, maybe a child having a tantrum in the backseat. All of this happening, and guess what? You didn't notice that the speed limit just dropped.
Right.
And guess where the police officer is going to be? He's going to be right after that spot. So, yeah, you take all of that into consideration. On top of that, you've got red light cameras, you've got speed cameras, you've got speed traps, you've even got airline patrol areas. These are all ways to force you into paying extra money when you're really doing what everybody else is doing on the road. So by using the detector, you're protected by having that extra awareness of the situation because you're aware of what's going on around you. Like I said, it's certainly not designed to protect when driving at excessive speed. If you're going to do that, I mean, there's probably more issues going on at that point. So It's really for the everyday. It's for the real world. Kind of an interesting fact there is that you're far more likely to get ticketed driving a minivan or a truck or a car on your commute. Sports cars are far less likely to be ticketed in general. So,
well, that's interesting. I mean, do you think that's because more of the minivans and stuff are on the road? And I mean, I've been in that scenario that you spoke of where you're driving and kids are arguing or whatever, and you're just kind of not paying attention. And the speed limit goes from 80 to 60 or 80 to 50. And sure enough, there's either a camera set up there or a laser trap, and you have somebody pulling you in. Do you think that people, I guess on the other hand, when you're in your sports car, I guess if you're getting pulled over, it's typically well over the speed limit, and you got more issues, like you said. But why do you think that is? That the everyday common commuter vehicle is the one that's getting pulled over?
Honestly, obviously numbers has a lot to do with that, and you're right. It's just life, right? You're going about your everyday business. It's the last thing on your mind. If you're driving a sports car, you're pretty, a little bit more in tune to what the car is doing and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of a different mindset as you're driving. So it really, like I said, it brings around the awareness that having a radar detector for every day is more of situations. So.
Cool. So. I mean, we've got some behind me here, that to show that the different styles. But I guess the next question is, what are the challenges that you guys face in developing a new radar detector in a world where every day there's new cameras and new, the police are coming out with new technology to ensure that they're catching speeders?
Right. It actually is. It's very challenging in several ways. So, kind of break it down into different technologies. For radar, which is a radio frequency, obviously, we haven't really had to do anything in terms of creating detection for a new band. Radar bands in North America haven't changed since 1993. There's a lot of things now, though, that, that are built to interfere with radar detectors. Automatic door openers, other cars with their collision avoid system. There's other stuff out there. So you have to always be continuing to innovate and update the technology to really help keep the focus on the actual signal threats. On top of that, you have LiDAR, which is laser. It's got the capability to change. So laser being a different technology, they're always updating those with new guns, new firmware. So we're always kind of chasing the tail there as far as coming up with firmware to actually be able to keep up with those as well. In industry, it's the manufacturer that's always we have to find out these changes on the fly as new cars are developed, as new things are doing. It's not an industry that you're getting a lot of technology that's shared and it's easy to figure out. This is truly a cat and mouse game, and obviously, so it's an ongoing challenge with very limited information to work with.
Yeah, so basically, Brady, you guys are behind the ball. Like you're waiting for the next thing to come out, then to try to defeat it. Correct?
Correct. You always have to wait for whatever happens and then respond.
No police, nobody on the payroll to give you guys an insight or heads up that, hey, guess what?
Contrary to popular belief that, no, we don't own the companies that create the radar guns either. So, it's definitely always behind the eight ball on that.
I understand that. So, Escort's a very recognizable brand, and I mean, it's not like you're new to the market or just coming out. Tell us about the Escort as a company, how you guys test the radar systems, the detectors themselves. Where is this done and how is it done? Give us a brief rundown on when somebody's buying something, what Escort has gone through to get it ready for a customer as an end user.
Sure. Well, I can't go into too many specifics on the exact how. What I can tell you really is that, obviously we're a global company and we make products for all different markets in all across the world. We put months, sometimes years of the development in each one of our platforms. Fortunately, what I can tell you, most of our engineering, actually almost all of our engineering, is in Ohio. We do have a couple guys in like a Chicago office. We have some in Mississauga. We have some overseas. But most of the testing is focused and started in that area where the engineers are in Ohio.
Okay.
We also have a group of people that are remote. Like myself, I live in the Arizona territory, so I am able to be one of the kind of the remote testers. I have got guys in Oregon, Massachusetts. So on top of that, we have a lot of beta testers that can kind of test these products as well. So we go through an extensive amount of processing to evaluate each level as far as what a detector can and cannot do. But it's also something that's always kind of changing. Competition has changed that, situations, new cars, everything kind of changes that. So it's kind of an ever flowing, type of process, I guess. So
interesting. So I guess the question I have is when you come up with an average range that the detector can pick up on or pick something up, is that tested like in a open space where the gun is this far away and the vehicle is that far away and we're trying and it picks it up, or is it in the beta testing that you're talking about that it's an average of what the guys that are testing it for you or customers that are giving you some beta feedback? Like how is that testing done? Like how, because a lot of the radar detectors we have, and I personally had the experience that, geez, my radar detector went off saying that there's laser in the area. I'm driving for another 5 minutes, haven't seen anything, almost ready to get my foot back on the gas again, and then bang, I see the cop car sitting on the overpass, and it's like, wow, it picked it up from a long ways away.
Sure. Obviously range is always one of the things that, consumers in the industry talk about as far as how well a radar detector works. That's really only one component for it. So obviously, there's a lot of, third-party tests that will look at that as the only, focus to it. It's an awesome story to be able to say, hey, you know what, I got this signal, and by the way, I was driving, over fast, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, there's the car. That's a cool thing.
Sure.
But it's really only one part of it.
Okay.
So there's no specific thing to range, because obviously range is affected as a radio signal. Only a straightforward road with no objects. Every car, hill, metal object, building, they all affect range. So
right.
Just by having devices that have incredible sensitivity, that helps that range. But it's going to be different in every single situation. So there's no way to really kind of pinpoint that number.
And that's understandable. I brought it up because I can speak to a personal experience on the range that it gives on my radar detector. But I just want to shift into we're talking about testing and stuff, but GPS technology and radar detectors. What's the big benefit of having GPS technology?
Well, GPS basically adds a couple different specific benefits. So by knowing how, by adding GPS onto a detector, you now know several things that give you extra data. So first off, you know how fast you're going. The detector knows how fast you're going. So by doing that, we can do a lot of things as far as like speed sensitivity or speed adjusted sensitivity. We also can tell, by where you're at. Now I can actually look at, fixed radar signals like automatic door openers and say, you know what, I know I'm here. I know that signal's not real, so I can now start locking those signals out automatically as false alarms. So it becomes quieter and learns. On top of that, GPS allows us to add our Defender database onto it as well, so it gives us the exact location of red light cameras, fixed speed cameras, all those air patrol traps, all that type of stuff. We have a database that knows every single one of those anywhere in North America.
Wow.
So that's also GPS driven.
Anywhere in North America, that's a pretty big database of where laser traps or radar is set up. That's continually being updated, correct?
Continually being updated, yes.
So that kind of works us right into the next question about radar being updatable. Connected car, what does that mean in regards to radar detector?
Well, so it's kind of part of some trends that are going on here as well. So, the two areas that I look at as far as trends, one is the connected car. Connected car is huge in the fact that by adding our Escort Live or Cobra iRadar app, since there's two different apps that we use, basically that gives us a platform to connect drivers with a ton of information and data that they can't get otherwise. So, basically, if we're driving somewhere, close to each other, what your detector sees is what I'm going to see when I, come in, whatever, 5-10 minutes later. I'm going to see what your detector already saw. So it's shared data on something like that as well. On top of that, we're starting to integrate new technologies into that. So that app space and that connected world is going to be one of the biggest focuses on for us moving forward to keep developing. The other part of the trends really too is really about integration. So we talk a lot, especially in our CI product, which is our custom install product. We talk about integrating into the factory OEM car or an aftermarket stereo. So I can take our display and our control on our CI and even our top of the line dash mounts, and we can actually tie those into the multimedia gauge cluster on certain cars and have steering wheel controls adjusted. Or even with aftermarket stereos, we can actually fire that entire display and control of the system into an aftermarket stereo too. So again, it's really about creating a driving experience where we have multiple technologies available in a very limited dash space. We want to give the driver the ultimate control to those devices, and to some extent be like it came with the car itself.
That's it's interesting. You kind of briefly touched on Live. Can you go into a little more detail on Live and the benefits that it provides in a little more detail?
Sure, absolutely. So Escort Live, like I said, is basically an app that you can download on your iPhone or Android device. And what it's doing is it's connecting to our detector via Bluetooth. And it gives you, again, that Defender database that's always updated. If you're connected to Live, you know exactly the most up-to-date information, all those cameras. Up in your area, you've got a lot more cameras than most cities do, certainly.
We do, yep. But
all of that information is always, up to date. And again, it's connecting you with other people that are using that app as well. So, forgive my American terms here, but basically anywhere, in 50 miles of where you're driving, anybody on that app at that space can also see what you're seeing if they're on that same road. So say you're driving along that laser trap that you defined, and I'm coming 5 minutes later and I only have a dash mount, but I'm going to know because your device automatically reported that laser to the cloud. I'm going to know that I'm coming up on a laser trap on its own just via the app space.
Yeah, and that's technology at its best. What models is that available on, or is it available on all of them?
It's basically available on everything that we do. So if the unit has Bluetooth built in, or even on our high-end pieces that have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, that comes, the capability for that is built into the unit.
Wow, that's awesome. And that, I mean, just talking about that, and I mean, hearing you say that, hey, I'm driving on a road and our camera guy, Steve, is behind me. We're heading out to the racetrack. My radar detector blips off that laser's coming and he's leaving work just after me. On his way, he's going to know that, hey, there was laser up here and to slow down, which, I mean, if you can help one guy, why not, right?
Exactly. And some of the misconception is that you have to have the app open, and actually see the app. That's actually not true. So the information that is being transmitted through the app will actually show up on your display of your radar detector. So as long as the app is running in the background, you're still getting all of those real-time data alerts as well.
Oh, cool. Oh, what a great feature. And I mean, with the technology the way it is and integration and everything that you mentioned, I mean, it's just another great feature that, as a community, you're working together to defend against, not excessive speeding, but just being a little bit over on the odd time, right?
Yep, it's community sharing, basically.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to get into some technical stuff, and I say it's technical because, as we all are consumers, you hear abbreviations and things about radar, and the first one is MRCD. What is this technology? Why is it important? And just give us a rundown on first MRCD, then MRCT, but we'll start with MRCD.
Well, so MRCD and MRCT, we can actually kind of combine that into one thing. So they're basically the same thing. It's really more known as multi-radar, and multi-radar is, the only difference between CB and CT is that CT is kind of a newer version of it, but essentially they're both the same thing. It's interesting that obviously with you guys, you're based more up in the Edmonton area, and Edmonton, unfortunately, is one of the most aggressive cities in the world for speed enforcement devices. So you guys have a lot of everything up in that area. MRCD is not something that we worry about in North America as a whole. It's a little bit more prevalent in Canada, certainly, and certainly up in your area. But basically what MRCD or multi-radar is it's a K-band radar signal. But different than, say, a police strength radar signal that's just a constant signal, and it has a lot of power, so it can work from a significant distance. Multi-radar is much lower power, and it uses a modulated signal, so it's a lot more difficult to get that signal in terms of having time to react to it, that type of stuff. Okay. So it's a different animal. It's kind of something that was, again, it's newer technology. That's, the cat and mouse game that we talked about. Most of our devices, basically any of our higher end devices, have the capability to detect anything from the multi-radar standpoint as well.
Cool. It's a great explanation. I mean, it's kind of troubling to know that Edmonton is on the forefront of the latest and greatest technology to catch us Edmontonians as speeders. I mean,
it's an unfortunate thing to lead, isn't it?
Well, I think myself and the rest of us Edmontonians should think about that next time we're electing our officials, because for the city that we're in and the size of our city, for somebody from Arizona like yourself to say that we're the ones leading the way, that kind of hurts my feelings a bit. But it's good to know that a company like Escort is doing everything they can to protect us Edmontonians. Let's keep us on the forefront, away from the multi-radar systems and the newer technologies and stuff. I just, after your explanation, I was just like, wow, I didn't realize that we're on the forefront, but good to know.
Yeah, and it's also very important to know, some of the other things that, again, we talked about the Defender database, because multi-radar can also be found in two different devices. You have fixed camera poles, and then you also have mobile vans. So where the mobile vans, you have to rely on the detector to alert it because they can be moving all over the place. And again, remember, through your Escort Live app, you can help the community know where they're at by marking those locations, and so you can actually see those as well. But the fixed cameras that use multi-radar technology, those are all in that Defender database as cameras. So it's also going to alert you via our Escort Live or our Defender database that's built into all of our GPS units that camera is coming up as well. So the one thing, too, to remember that because it's not a humongous threat, multi-radar is defaulted as off settings in the detector. So you kind of have to remember to turn it on, especially if you're in those areas.
Right. One of the questions just came up. The other term that we hear is Dragon Eye. What is Dragon Eye radar technology? Yes. What is this?
Well, Dragon Eye is really not much of it's not so much a radar technology as it is a LiDAR or laser technology. And Dragon Eye obviously is, in terms of laser, if you're going to define laser, it's infrared light that's shot out of the police officer's, gun there that, uses a very small bandwidth. It's very specific to the car. It's got limited range, that type of stuff. So in terms of Dragon Eye, it's kind of like multi-radar being a technology on top of radar. Dragon Eye is a newer, what we call a variable pulse rate LiDAR gun, which is, again, more difficult to actually read that signal as well, kind of like multi-radar is.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think we have our customers come in the store and they've done a little bit of reading but yeah, having you explain it the way it is and what it is with MRCD and Dragon Eye, I think that gives us a little more comfort that Escort is doing what they can to stay on top of it. I mean, like we said right at the start, it's not a license to speed and nothing is ever 100%, but you definitely increase your odds when you have a detector sitting on your dash.
Absolutely.
The next question I have is one that we get a lot in our stores, and our sales guys ask the question, is one radar detector better or worse for highway versus city?
Not really. So, I mean, historically, yes, you could say that. Sorry, I just stepped on something there.
No problem.
Yeah, basically, so in terms of that, it really depends on the settings on the detector and how you use them. So in today's world, a good GPS-based detector has great filtering, and that can be any situation, whether it's highway or city. We made units that provided just extreme range, which was really more for highway-only using. But now, again, today the technology has improved so much that we can now get the best of both worlds. So now you can have great range, as well as all the filtering for all those situations.
I mean, that's great because, I think that, people will define that, I do a lot of highway driving or, I'm on the road a lot and I'm never in the city. So, what radar detector is best for the highway? It's good to know that really they're all excellent and where you're driving isn't so much as important anymore as maybe it was previously.
Right.
What the next thing that we've had is some of our customers make the comment that radar will become obsolete due to the noise from newer vehicles and lane departure systems and the self-driving cars. What are your comments to that? Like what's Escort doing to try to stay ahead of that? Above and beyond the new guns that the police are using. You also have the issue of, like you said, more and more interference coming from newer vehicles. So what do you have to say to that?
I'm glad you brought that up. So, I mean, it really calls out that, there's so much misinformation when it comes to radar detectors in general as far as, kind of a consumer opinion. But basically what happens is there's two different types of systems that I talk about. What we call CAS, or collision avoidance systems, and BSM, or blind spot monitoring systems. Yep. So newer cars are equipped with both of those types of technologies. And, they're designed to, basically protect you in certain situations. Obviously, doing what it says. It's, avoid the car in front of you from being in an accident or avoid turning into, the next lane where the car is. So it's great technology, and it helps people drive safer. It's certainly been a pain over the years for radar detectors because the frequency that they use typically on those shares our K-band radar for all detectors as well.
Right.
Started way 2008 with Mercedes-Benz, and nowadays it's available on almost every car out there.
Right.
So, because it causes, interference with K-band radar detectors, we've gone and developed our IVT technology that basically goes in and filters these systems out of cars. So, and it's an updatable system. So, every time a new car comes out, we've got to go out and record that car and learn that system so we can program that particular car into our system so it avoids false alarming on that vehicle itself. That's a fully updatable system on every detector that we have.
Well, that's
so.
That's cool.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brady. I just it's great that you guys are taking that lane departure system and the K bands that they're using and integrating to be able to filter it. I mean, so it's a never-ending process for you guys to continually add that to your updatable radar detector so that you're not getting false signal from those.
Right. And to kind of further answer that, I mean, the reality is K-band is not used as much anymore for police radar systems. It's kind of an older technology. So as we move past that, this gets all easier. And a lot of the OEM manufacturers are no longer using K-band for those CAS and VSM systems. They've gone up into like W-band and other bands that don't have any bearing or any effect on the radar detector. So it's getting a little bit better, but the ones that are out there, if you don't have some type of filtering for that, it's absolutely an issue. It causes a negative experience driving a detector because you're falsing too much. So you definitely want to, quiet detectors are more effective than noisy ones. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think we all would be in the mindset that if the radar detector was continually going off, eventually just unplug it, right? And then it defeats the purpose of having one.
Yeah, it's like crying wolf, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is probably the best analogy right there. So the new Redline 360C is about to show up here at JB's Power Center. What are some of the features that we can expect?
So I am super excited about this piece. So the Redline 360C has several years in the manufacturing and the making of this unit. This unit, simply put, is the absolute best dash radar unit we have ever manufactured. It offers the best range, the most extreme range, the best filtering we've ever had, and on top of that, it is 100% stealth to any radar detector. And yes, that is a real thing. Obviously, again, being in Canada, if you're in the eastern part of the country, you probably should really know what a radar detector is, because it's illegal to use them over there. On top of that, I mean, this unit also has, multiple radar sensors in it as well. So it gives you directional alerts and awareness of the signal. So if you're coming up on that threat, the arrows are going to point to it, or if that threat is coming up, on you from the backside of the car as well. So literally, it's the most complete radar detector on the market today. It is just now, really not quite shipping, but it's getting ready to ship here in the U.S., Canada, in August.
Okay.
It's kind of delayed, in, of course, lower, mainly really due to the pandemic situation. But
sure.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this unit. It literally changes the game for dash mount detectors.
That's great. And you were saying, we kind of lost you there, I think, with some signal, but you were saying August in Canada, or was that what you're thinking? I mean, we're a couple weeks away, so that's not that far away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously, like I said, our inventory was limited because of the pandemic, so it's just kind of delayed things a little bit. So
no problem. And just getting into a last question here, laser defense. To somebody new to the radar world, how would you explain the importance of laser defense, and so that basically everybody can understand, and it's not in a high level discussion amongst those that are experts in the field?
Yeah. Another great question. So, laser, as we've talked about, laser is the more common term for LiDAR. So you'll hear me say LiDAR a lot. That's the technical term. Laser is the more commonly heard version of that. Unfortunately, laser works with an instant-on narrow infrared beam to instantly detect both the speed and distance of the vehicle being targeted. So typically, it's point, trigger, I've got you. Right? There's not a whole way around that. they're aimed to, or they're trained to aim that device at like a highly reflective part on the front of the car, whether it's a license plate or a big chrome grille or a headlight, that type of stuff. And that can be challenging to any radar detector, especially a dash mount radar detector, because the signal, if you're close enough, or right to that threat, sometimes the dash mounted detector won't even see it because the signal's too small.
Right.
So when it comes to laser, we manufacture what we call laser defense systems. Currently, we offer these in several different packages. The first being the ZR5, and yes, there's my Canadian conversion to ZR from Z. Standalone, that's a standalone wired system. So basically, it's something that you can install on the car, and basically you have sensors mounted in the grill area of the car, and they're built there to basically counter that laser system. So it can not only read the laser systems up, including the newest technology and what we talked about with Dragoneye, but it can actually jam that signal as well.
Oh.
The second system is called the ZW5, and that's just a wireless add-on for our top-of-line dash unit. Essentially the same type of product, but the install is a little bit easier because it's a wireless connection between the sensors in the grill area and the dash-mounted unit itself. But differently than the ZR5 can work on its complete, on its own. Doesn't need anything else. The ZW5 does need our top-of-the-line dash mounts to be connected to it. And on top of that, we have two what we call custom install systems, the Max CI 360 and the IX CI systems. These guys are really kind of what we call the bad boys. They're completely built-in, integrated radar detector and laser shifter systems. Definitely systems that take the game up a little bit.
Right.
So all of these guys basically employ what we call laser shifters, and those, like I said, we can take that LiDAR or laser signal that comes into it and basically confuse it to give a non-reading to the gun that's shooting it.
Right. And those systems, Brady, those systems that you're talking about with the laser shifting and stuff, that's all sensors that need to be mounted and like it. These aren't plug and play. These will take an installation, but once they're in, you're basically at the top of the game when it comes to laser defense.
Correct. Very correct. Unfortunately for you as a driver, it's far more difficult for an officer to use a LiDAR or laser system versus radar because they've got some limitations as to, how they're using it. They can't be moving when they use laser.
Right.
They can't fire it through glass, so they've got to be, open window, things like that. And then you also have a pretty limited range of how far an effective, laser signal can be read on that gun too. So, where radar, on the other hand, is a radio frequency, it can travel long distances. The officer can be moving. He can be moving the same or opposite directions.
Right.
So there's advantages. Overall, we see about a 3-to-1 ratio of radar versus LiDAR across the country. Most of the LiDAR laser stuff that you'll see is going to be in high traffic urban areas, on multi-lane highways or large traffic, areas. Because even if they're using, that laser system, what we talked about, that error or non-reading that our shifters give, that can happen on its own. It just depends on how the officer's using that gun and how the angle hits.
Right.
So, and it doesn't mean that it's, it's being jammed all the time. So,
excellent. Go ahead.
I was going to say, basically, kind of to your point earlier is, if you really want to be at the top of the game, you definitely want to have a laser defense system mounted on the car as well. That's really kind of puts you at that top of that game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I mean, you have the option, which is nice. So at any time you can upgrade or like you said, add to one of the top-of-the-line dash mount radar detectors to be up on that next level of laser defense. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Brady, is, with our listeners and our viewers, what advice can we give our consumers or our customers to help them determine the best radar detector for their needs? Because there's always a need, or there's always something that somebody wants to, I need it for this. So what advice can we give our customers, on picking the best radar detector to suit them?
A lot of it has to do with their driving habits. First thing I'll ask a lot of people is, are you an aggressive driver? Some people are going to say, yeah, you bet I am. I want to get out there and I want to get going. On something like that, if you're an aggressive driver, you're certainly going to want the upper end units. To me, it's, at that point, you're going to define yourself as, something that has the arrows, giving you that directional awareness and having the great performance to go with it, great filtering for all of the CAS systems. So that kind of goes hand in hand. Some people want a detector for their long trip or something like that. And in terms of that, maybe that's a more basic unit that's going to give them the alerts and the awareness and still be able to tap into our Escort Live app as well. But it's probably not as important as an everyday driver. If you're using a detector day in, day out, buy a detector that does everything you want to do.
Right. I guess, with that question, which was a great question that you asked, what type of driver are you? It's about being honest, right? Yes, I am an aggressive driver. I'm always on it. I'm hard light to light. Whatever it is, it's all, I'm not an aggressive driver. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, I just didn't want to say it. You need to be honest about the way you drive and what your actual needs are. So that's a great question, and it's something that everybody can identify with and help them get the choice of their radar detector so that, again, it matches their driving style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lastly, we have some units now that can also integrate a dash cam. What's the benefit of combining the technologies?
Yeah, so one of the devices that we make is called our M1 dash cam, and it literally uses the mount of our radar detector and the power wire from a radar detector. And what it does is you can mount it to the detector. So again, you're saving space on the windshield of having two different technologies into one space, and then using our amp or our bracket and our power. It's just saving the install time, and it gives you as an HD dash cam, basically you're giving yourself protection from hey, what happens if you get in an accident?
Sure.
It's the other person's fault. You have that instant proof. And again, so it's an up-and-coming technology as far as dash cams are being used, and this is just a good way to actually integrate that into one spot on your dash. We're going to obviously continue developing that, again, integration more and more as we go forward. We already have in the Cobra lineup, we already have one of those units that has a camera built into the unit. So.
Yep. That's great. And again, like we talked right at the top of the program, about technology and using it to our advantage and integration with technology. That's all things that we have the benefit right now. And as the future comes, I'm sure the integration will be that much better.
Right.
Brady, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And the last thing here is, where can customers go to get information on Escort radar detectors?
Obviously, you can go to the website at escortradar.com. We'll give you some of the information. But I always recommend that they and go to a retail store like JB Performance and really find out from the salesperson and to actually evaluate some of those needs as well, as far as your driving habits, that type of stuff. So, obviously, talking to a real person is always going to be better on that.
I agree with you on that, Brady. Once again, thank you very much for taking the time, and we really appreciate you being on our Powercast with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Have yourself a great weekend, Brady. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to JB's Powercast.
Check out jbspowercenter.com for the latest updates.
You can find the JB's Powercast at jbspowercenter.com, YouTube, and Facebook. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. JB's Powercast is a JB's Power Center production and is produced by Stephen MD and Sean Lansman.